Hey, everybody. It is State Senator Mallory McMorrow. Happy Friday. We are here for another virtual coffee hour. So, for those who are new, or just a reminder of how this works, we are live streaming this across Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. This is your time with me. So, we host this just about every single week that the Senate is in session. And this is a chance for you to hear directly from me on an update on what is happening in Lansing, in your legislature, what we've been working on, and then opening it up to Q&A. So this is muted. Let's see. Shouldn't be muted. I don't believe I'm muted. Liz, can you hear me on the video? Bear with us if we have some technical. Is anybody else tuned in? Do you hear the audio? We're going to QA this with people who are watching. Feel free to type in the comments. Not muted. All right, no worries. Cool. No, this is the joy of live social media feeds is sometimes we run into some issues. So anyway, good to see you, State Senator Mallory McMorrow. So how this works, you get an update from me on what is happening in Lansing and the legislature. This is the start of lame duck. So I'm going to explain what that is, what we've been working on, and importantly, what we're not working on, in my opinion. And then we're going to be joined today by Liz, who's my constituent services director, who's going to be moderating the Q&A. We are trying out having some multiple people in the platform, which is exciting. So thank you to everybody who's joined us from Twitter, from Facebook, from YouTube, from LinkedIn. How this works is you'll get an update from me, and then when we open it up to Q&A, just feel free to go ahead and ask your question directly in the comment section. We'll be able to see them from all of the platforms. And how this will work is Liz will read your question and your name out loud, and then I will answer them. So she will curate all those. And the reason that we do this is because we have people tuning in from multiple platforms. And because these videos are available afterwards. So that way people have context to understand who's asking a question, what the question was before they get the answer. So want to thank everybody for tuning in, and we will dive right into it. So one of the things that I want to talk about, we are just coming off of Thanksgiving. We're heading into the holidays, and unfortunately, we are still 9 months in facing the COVID-19 pandemic. It is now at some of the worst levels that it has been since the beginning. We are now seeing at least 6 hospitals in Michigan that are at full capacity, many that are nearing full capacity, and the community spread, and that's a huge issue right now, it's just almost impossible to track. So I'll give you a story. A friend of mine works as a contact tracer. So she is responsible for trying to identify where outbreaks are happening by getting in touch with people who were exposed to COVID-19 and doing contact tracing, which we all know is critical to being able to understand where the spread is happening and how we can contain it. And a lot of contact tracers, if I'm honest with you, are giving up because it's everywhere. They are talking to people now who either don't know where they got COVID-19, or there are people who are unwilling to say. This is something that we've unfortunately seen happen in the legislature, where we have had a fairly large number of positive cases of COVID-19. And I have to give credit to the Senate Business Office, who does alert us anytime somebody reports a positive case to the Senate. So we get an alert that says, that there was a person who tested positive. It gives us the dates that they were in the office and if we were potentially exposed. But a lot of people either aren't reporting or not reporting accurately. I had a colleague who went to get a COVID-19 test, and the best practice is if you go get tested, you're supposed to wait and self-isolate until you get your result. But this colleague came into the Senate, and I serve in a couple of committees with her. And then found out afterwards that she tested positive. So this is happening all over. I have to tell you right now, all of my siblings, all three of them, all got COVID. My sister is 22. She works in a restaurant. She got it at work. Multiple of her colleagues, people, her coworkers at the restaurant, have tested positive for COVID. And she and I were talking yesterday, and it's tough. You know, she works in an industry where she makes just over $2 an hour before tips, and now she's making no income. And there are a lot of people who are in this situation right now who are really struggling with that determination of, do I go to work? Is it safe? You know, a lot of people clearly don't have the option, don't have savings. There's a lot of stimulus that's run out. We know that Congress is stalled and are making the decision to go to work and potentially contract the virus at work. So she's now just getting towards the end of her quarantine, but has just been out of work and not making any income. While she's been self-isolating, she had Thanksgiving by herself in her room in her apartment, and I asked her, you know, really candidly, what she was having for Thanksgiving, and she told me she wasn't having anything. Whatever leftovers were in the fridge because she was trying to save money. And that's really hard. And I know that's where a lot of people are. So not to start everything off on a downer, but just wanted to remind people we are still with this virus, and it is still very much in our community. It is spreading. It is hard to understand for contact tracers where it is spreading. Michigan just surpassed 10,000 deaths from COVID-19, which is a number that is really hard. It's hard to think of. I think we became the 11th state in the country where 1 out of every 1,000 residents has died from this virus now. So that's a warning as we go into the holidays. I had Thanksgiving with just my husband. We did it at home. We didn't have anybody over, and we are planning the same for the holidays and baby shower. And I am due to deliver our first on January 25th. And we're all making those hard decisions right now. But I think the good news is there are multiple promising vaccines on the horizon. We know that some of them are going to start being distributed before the end of the year to some of our frontline workers and our most vulnerable population. So it's not forever. And I think that is something, this has been a hard year on everybody, myself included, that there is a silver light at the end of this tunnel, but we have to get through that tunnel first. And right now we're in a bad spot. So it's on all of us. It's on all of us to do the right thing, to take care of ourselves and each other. But I want to dive into some of the things that are happening related to COVID right now, and kind of go from there. So in Oakland County, there was an announcement that the testing locations have changed. So throughout the summer, there were drive-through testing locations, but due to the weather, obviously it's much colder now. We are in winter. The locations have changed to account for the weather and make sure that people can come indoors and that the locations provide shelter. So we will post this, we'll repost this on our Facebook page. But for everybody watching the video across multiple platforms, the new testing sites are open by appointment only. So you do have to contact Oakland County to make an appointment, but you do not need a prescription. So you don't need to see a doctor ahead of time to get an appointment. So you just need to call ahead, make an appointment. On Mondays, the testing location is in Holly at the old Holly Fire Station. On Tuesdays, the location is in our district. It's at the Rochester Fire Station. On Wednesdays, it's at Southfield City Hall. On Thursdays, it's at the Pontiac Fire Station. So again, this is all through Oakland County. This is the PCR test. So this is the test that they have to send out and you get back. It takes anywhere from 2 to 5 days typically to get results, but it is free. It just requires an appointment. So contact the county if you're looking to get a test, and you'll be able to get in at one of those locations. There are also plenty of other locations throughout our district and the state that are providing coronavirus testing. And if you need to find a testing location near you, you can go to michigan.gov/coronavirus. And there's a tool there where you can put in your address and search for many of the locations that are providing COVID-19 testing. So if you need to get a test, please do. I've had about 5, I think, so far. So if you really want to get the back of your nose and brain cleaned out a little bit every now and then, it's just a great way to clear out the sinuses. All right. So, what is the state doing to combat COVID-19? We know that back in October, the state Supreme Court ruled that the governor could no longer exercise her emergency powers under the state of emergency, and that she would have to go to the legislature to either ask for a state of emergency extension or that the legislature would have to pass COVID related bills legislatively to send to the governor. But the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, under a separate area of statute, does have the authority to pass public health orders to protect the public health. So Michigan is currently in a 3-week pause. It is much more targeted than the stay-at-home orders that we saw earlier in the year. So this primarily affects high school is operating remotely right now. Indoor dining is currently not allowed. However, outdoor dining and takeout still is. So please support your favorite restaurants. We've been doing a lot of takeout and delivery myself. Also, theaters, places where we see some of the highest risk of spread. So we are in the middle of the 3-week pause right now. The positive case rate levels have started to level out, and Dr. Caldoun, the state's chief medical officer, gave an update on this, but it's not going down nearly as much as we'd like to see. And there's certainly some concern, especially among all of our hospitals and our medical experts, that we are going to see another surge in the wake of Thanksgiving with people gathering. So again, just use your best judgment. We all know now how to stay safe, wear a mask, social distance, avoid crowds, work from home if you can, so we can get through this. But for those businesses who are affected, I know for many of our small businesses, our restaurants particularly, are having a really, really hard time right now. And it is, how do you find that balance of paying your bills and making sure you survive to the other side, but that we're not in a situation like my sister found out she was in, where, indoor dining is a rare case where inherently people can't wear masks. You can't wear a mask while you're eating or drinking. So we've got people who are indoors, who are face to face with each other, who are in poorly circulated areas. We're not getting the air circulation that we do outside. So that's an inherently risky space right now. But we want to make sure that our small businesses can survive. So on that end, there's a few relief packages that are available. There's $10 million that was approved through the MEDC, through the state, for small businesses who have been affected by COVID-19 mitigation efforts. And you can find out more information about that at the MEDC website. And again, we will post all of these links for you so that you can have them. And then there's a plug as well. If you want all this information, to please sign up at our email newsletter, which you can find at senatormcmorrow.com, and we send out all of this information as well. Additionally, Oakland County itself, and I apologize if people see me like rolling around, I'm sitting on a ball right now per the recommendation of my doctor not to sit in a chair while I am 7 months pregnant. But anyway, so Oakland County approved $10 million in funding that was announced yesterday, particularly for restaurants who are working through this pause. So more information on those grants is available at the Oakland County website that you can find out there. So if you are a small business owner, if you own a restaurant, if you know somebody who's in this space, please spread the word. Make them aware of the fact that this relief is out there. We want everybody to be able to do the right thing to protect themselves, their customers, their staff. But we don't want to see anybody's doors closed. And I think that is absolutely critical to all of us getting through this together. Another update on that end. We know that it has been incredibly, incredibly frustrating to see the gridlock in Congress, where we know that we need additional relief to get through this. I think there is bipartisan agreement. We see across the board that our small businesses, our individuals, people are running up against eviction moratoriums, people have bills to pay. We need to provide financial relief for people, for small businesses to be able to weather this storm, especially knowing that we're getting close to vaccines, to the light at the end of this tunnel. So myself and a number of our state house colleagues penned a letter to the congressional delegation and our U.S. senators, Debbie Stabenow and Gary Peters, encouraging them to continue to push through the gridlock in Congress. We desperately, desperately need additional relief to come to the state of Michigan. And we shared some additional details with them that we're hearing on the ground about the percentage of small businesses who have closed so far, about people who are struggling. And we know that they've been really vocal as is in trying to push for this relief. So our hope is that by hearing directly from us and hearing some of your stories directly, that gives them some leverage to keep pushing. And last I checked, it actually feels like, fingers crossed, we might be close to a bipartisan deal in Congress to push through some form of relief. I know in the House, Steny Hoyer in the House said that they will not go on holiday break until something has passed, which is frankly the urgency that we need right now. All right, what else has been happening? So one thing that affects all of our local communities, you may or may not know about the Open Meetings Act. This is law in the state of Michigan that requires public meetings and for meetings to be accessible and be available for public comment. If you have attended any city council or city commission meetings or school board meetings since the pandemic started, you've probably been doing it like this over Zoom. So we had to pass a law that would allow for that would allow for these meetings to take place virtually. And there was a bill that passed that would allow for the extension of that through the end of the year. I think all of us know that this pandemic is not going to magically go away on December 31st. So we are encouraging our colleagues in Lansing to push for an extension for this. This is something that I've heard from all of our local municipalities is very, very important to be able to continue legally operating virtually to protect all of the board members and to protect members of the public who are able to participate virtually and not put themselves at risk by going to a physical meeting. So we'll keep you posted on any news there. Other than that, we had a long session day yesterday. This is the start of lame duck. So lame duck is the session period between the election and January when you have new legislators sworn in. So it's called lame duck because we have some legislators who were either termed out or who lost their elections, who are lame ducks in office. And this is a typically very chaotic period in the legislature because you have people who are running up against the end of their time in Lansing, who really want to get their bills passed. They want to get things through. And anything can happen. Historically, some bad things have happened during lame duck. There has been some push, and it's something that I would support, to eliminate lame duck and just not meet during this period between the election and January 1st. Because fundamentally, you've got some people in Lansing who are no longer accountable to voters for a variety of reasons. And I just think that causes some decisions to be made that are not in the best interest of people historically. All that being said, obviously, we are still in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. So I would like to see exceptions being made if we are going to get rid of lame duck to focus exclusively on the pandemic and respond. You know, you rely on us to be able to respond to this crisis, and we need to be able to do that. But all of that being said, we passed dozens of bills in the Senate yesterday. And if you watched a video that I had posted earlier and expressing my frustration, not one of the bills that passed yesterday that we took up in the Senate directly addresses the spread of COVID-19. Dozens of bills, dozens. We were there for hours. Not one addressing COVID-19. And some of you have reached out and said, what are you doing about it? I want to know what my senator is doing about this. And the frustrating truth is that legislators like myself have not been allowed to introduce any new bills or get any new bills drafted as of October 31st. The only exceptions being any bills that have the express permission or exemption from the Senate Majority Leader or the Speaker of the House, which is frustrating. It is frustrating, and I will tell you this honestly, as your senator, that it feels a little bit powerless to act. I can't introduce anything. The best I can do is be vocal and continue to advocate and share your stories. And I gave a speech on the floor yesterday expressing my frustration that we weren't addressing COVID-19. We have 6 session days left on the calendar, and my plan right now is to get up every single day and say the same thing until we actually address COVID-19. But I will run down some of the things that we did pass. There were some bills related to kind of the ancillary effects of COVID, a lot of extending tax deadlines. Um, let's see, let me scroll through and see what we have. Yeah, so there was a bill, Senate Bill 1203 gives businesses a 1-year reprieve from having to track which computer, printer, or office chair is going to which district as employees bring equipment home for the time being. This passed unanimously. Again, not sexy or glamorous, but these are just some things in the world of COVID that are passing. Let's see. House Bill 5824 extends the deadlines for local boards of review and county equalizations due to COVID-19. This was a Jim Ellison bill, who's our state rep out of Royal Oak, and that passed unanimously. One of the things that was challenging to me that I've also spoken about is we're not addressing COVID, but there was a pretty big package of corporate tax credit bills that passed yesterday. And I'll explain a little bit about them. So this was a package of bills that was introduced on behalf of Meijer. And I'm not here to attack Meijer. I think Meijer is a wonderful Michigan-based company. I think they do a lot of really, really great work. But this was something that they brought forward. Meijer is looking to create automated warehouses. So instead of their traditional warehouse where you have a lot of employees working, they're investing very heavily in automated equipment, many things very, very similar to robots you might see in the auto industry, to automate their warehouse services so that the robots would go and pick things up and package them up and be able to get them on the road out to Meijer stores. With that being said, they want significant tax breaks on these warehouses. There are currently exemptions on sales and use tax and personal property taxes for manufacturing, automotive manufacturing equipment. The way that Meijer is looking at this is the warehouse facility that they have built is more similar to manufacturing than it is to traditional warehouses and grocery. So they want equivalent tax breaks. And they brought up the argument that when a company like Amazon comes into the state of Michigan, we have traditionally bent over backwards with very lucrative incentive packages and tax breaks to try to get companies to locate in Michigan. And for a company like Meijer, who's always been here and built here, they want to play by the same rules. And I don't fault them for that. But I don't think the solution is that we give tax breaks for automation. I fundamentally do not believe that we should be incentivizing the elimination of jobs for automation. This is going to start happening in multiple industries. But also, I fundamentally think the solution needs to be that we level the playing field on the other end. I don't think we should be bending over backwards with these huge lucrative tax incentive packages to bring an Amazon into the state of Michigan. One of the things that has been shocking is that Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, his personal net worth has increased by, I think it's more than $100 billion at this point since the start of COVID-19. So just since March, his personal net worth has increased by significantly more than the budget for the entire state of Michigan. The budget for the state of Michigan annually for 10 million people for all of our roads, schools, water, police, fire, everything, the entire state is $60 billion a year. Just to put that in perspective. So I think a company like Amazon is going to be just fine. I think if they want to move into the state of Michigan, they should have to pay the same taxes and play by the same rules that any company like a Meijer or whoever is already paying here in the state. And that's funding that goes to our schools, our roads. And it's death by 1,000 cuts. So we've seen over the past 10 years a shift in tax burden. So that's the percentage of taxes that are paid from corporations onto residents. So people like you or me, anybody who lives in our district, what I hear all the time is it feels like we are paying more in taxes and getting less. That, the road in front of my house hasn't been repaired in however many years and there's potholes, and we see investment in our school aid fund budget continuing to decrease. We are last in the nation, the entire country, in increases to school funding. And not coincidentally, we are also last in increases in educational attainment. So that is fundamentally where I'm at. That is a bill package that passed despite my opposition yesterday. And there will be similar packages that come up during this lame duck session. And I think it just points to we need a much larger conversation on how we change our tax code, how we think about economic development and growth. And I don't think it's going to happen before the end of the year, but it is a little bit frustrating to watch that these sorts of packages are what gets prioritized over addressing the coronavirus pandemic. All right, so that was a lot of me talking. And there are a lot of other bills that did get passed yesterday during the lame duck session. If I were to read all of them to you and summarize them, we would be here for many hours. So I would encourage you to sign up for our newsletter so that you can get those. We'll also post updates once we post our e-newsletter where you can read all about them and reach out if you have any questions. But with that, I'm going to welcome Liz Trombley. So watch this. We're going to do some magic. And welcome, Liz.
Hello, everyone. Usually I'm in the comments hanging out with you guys, but here I am in person.
Yeah, so we're figuring out cool technology. So what Liz is going to do today is actually moderate the comments. So I know she's been keeping an eye on questions as she's coming in. So Liz, do you want to just pick out and read the person's name and probably what platform they're commenting from? So just in case people are watching and they're looking and they're like, I didn't see this question. And then read the question and I will do my best to answer them. If you are asking something that we don't know the answer to, I will be very honest with you and we will follow up and try to find the answer for you.
Yes. So a very quick question from Joseph on Twitter. I'm assuming your party affiliation is Republican or Democrat. I think he might be new to your social media.
Well, hey, welcome. I am State Senator Mallory McMorrow. I represent 280,000 people across 8 cities in Oakland County, and I am a Democrat.
All right. Next question is from Autumn on Facebook. She asked a question similar to a lot of questions we're getting and concerns to our district inbox is, how will we combat anti-vaxxer sentiment about the COVID-19 vaccine?
Oh, Autumn, this is a great question. And it is something that I think points to a much deeper issue, which is fundamental distrust in our public institutions. We see this not only in vaccines in the medical field, but also in politics. I think it's something that we face every single day. We are in an incredibly divided time right now where, there are people on both sides, and I'm not going to attack either side here, but when you get your information kind of from your echo chamber, and if you get all of your news from Facebook, for example, or social media, we know that these algorithms are intentionally designed to continue feeding you information of people who agree with you, and kind of feeding into that worldview. So it's really, really hard to build trust in that environment. And that's something that I think about all the time. I think that when it comes to vaccines, I am somebody who believes vaccines are some of the greatest medical accomplishments we've had. We no longer have polio. We no longer have these devastating diseases that, ravaged earlier generations of our families, but we are getting to a generation that maybe has not experienced some of these devastating viruses personally. Which is a blessing and a curse of medical advancements like this, where if you haven't experienced this, and we see this with COVID-19, I think right now, where for the people who have lost somebody to COVID, it is devastating. You listen to people tell their stories and it is just absolutely heartbreaking. But if you haven't experienced that loss personally, we see people who don't believe this virus is real. And who think that the reactions are an overreaction, and it's tough to break through. So from my perspective, I think that the more information we can put out there, the better. I was on a call recently with Pfizer and a number of my colleagues talking about the development process of their vaccine, all of the testing and analysis that goes into it, their distribution plans. And we'll be sharing as much of that as we can. The goal out of our office is we hope that you all learn to use this as a resource. We make sure to fact check all of our information. I'm not sharing with you stories from CNN or Fox News, right? I'm not sharing opinion pieces. We always try to put out factual information and make sure we connect you with experts and resources. And that's going to be our approach. I think that we need to build trust. We need to build trust in people. I feel very good about the vaccines that are coming out and the processes that they've gone through and the testing and development. And despite the fact that we've seen Operation Warp Speed, which I think is a good investment, right? I think this is something that the current administration has done a good job of, is increasing investment to make sure that we can get these vaccines out to people quickly. But it hasn't skipped any of the necessary testing steps. The FDA is not going to approve something that hasn't gone through the rigorous steps that it needs to take to be safe and to go out into the public. So, it's a tough thing. And vaccines, as we know, just like masks, it's only as effective as the percentage of people who take advantage of it. I've been reassured, I think, as the vaccine news has come out, that we see, over 50% of people said, yes, I'm ready. I am comfortable taking this vaccine. And I think that's a good starting point. But we will look for opportunities either to talk to doctors or developers. We'll probably do, shows like this where it's a split screen and bring somebody in to answer anybody's question, because we want to make sure that you feel good about it, and we feel good because we know that this is what we need to be able to get back to our normal lives. So thanks, Autumn, for the question.
Yeah. And I just got my flu shot a couple weeks back, so another plug to get your flu shot. Aspired Change on Twitter asks if there is any update on marijuana related policy.
That's a big question. Yes and no. And so to give you, let's go big to small. So on the federal level, I just read that there is some movement on trying to decriminalize marijuana on the federal level, which would be a tremendous help for those of us in the states. Because right now, for those states who have legalized recreational marijuana, like Michigan, it is still federally illegal, which means that there are challenges when it comes to banking. So a lot of businesses, particularly small business owners who want to get into the marijuana business, we do have the big players who are going to come in and kind of try to monopolize this. And we've seen this happen in other states. But I want to make sure in this industry that it's equitable, that we have diversity represented, and that small business owners are able to get into this space. But that's really hard if you can't legally open a bank account. These are potentially all cash businesses right now, which means that they are potentially very dangerous. They are targets for crime, because if you're carrying a lot of cash in your facility, that's not safe for you or your workers. So I'm encouraged to see that news on the federal level. That would be huge for those of us in states who have already taken the step to legalize recreational marijuana. But outside of that, I mean, there's a lot of policy that's working its way through Lansing. This is the first year of recreational marijuana facility kind of implementation. So many communities have recreational marijuana facilities that have opened. Many of them opened during the pandemic and had to get very creative about delivery services and how we do that securely. I know other communities are still kind of grappling with, where do marijuana businesses go in our community? And I think it's less an issue of being afraid of marijuana itself, but more of concerns within the community about the fact that these are largely all cash businesses. And what does that mean in terms of where they're placed and zoned in the community to make sure that police can quickly get to them if they need to. So I know that that's kind of where we're at right now. I think within our district, recreational marijuana passed when it was on the ballot in 2018 at above a 70% rate. So this was something that overwhelmingly our voters voted in favor of. So that's a big answer to say a lot. There's a lot happening. There's a lot about equity. My colleague, Senator Jeff Irwin, has been working on this issue for many years about ensuring that there is equity in this space, that we're not blocking out small business owners. There was a package of bills related to automatic expungement, which may not seem directly related to marijuana, but I think that's really important for individuals who may have had low-level drug crimes in the past. to be able to start over and to become business owners. And I think that package was really, really important to allowing that to happen.
All right. Our next question comes from Pete Campbell's twin on Twitter. He asks, or they ask, what is Speaker Chatfield and Senate Majority Leader Shirkey's reasoning behind not allowing new bills to be introduced?
Oh, I wish I had an answer to that. So my understanding, and again, I am a relatively new legislator. I got elected in 2018, so I am new to Lansing. But my understanding is there's always kind of a deadline before the end of the year for LSB, that's the Legislative Services Bureau. So when we draft a bill, as much as you might want to believe it, it's not me sitting at my computer typing out a bill myself. We have an entire bureau that helps draft that language in such a way to make sure that it can be a law. There's a very specific way that you have to write bill language to be sure that when it goes into statute, it doesn't conflict with any other areas of law. So we have to go through this agency. They're nonpartisan to draft bills with us when we want to draft bills. So, my understanding is there's always a deadline at the end of the year to make sure that they can fulfill all of those requests. But I don't know. I don't know the specific reason why there would be that deadline, particularly when we're in a pandemic. I would have much rather seen there be a deadline on anything not related to the pandemic, right? I mean, if we're going to put a deadline for the sake of LSB and their workload, which I fundamentally understand, let's make sure that we're addressing the most pressing need. So that is to say, I don't know, and I wish I did. But right now, it is only bills that are granted the exception of the Senate Majority Leader or the Speaker of the House can be introduced.
All right. The next question comes from Joshua on Facebook. They tell a story about how they're helping a family member in mid-Michigan who's they're shipping them groceries to reduce their risk of contracting COVID-19. They ask, could their family member lose their benefits if she does not use the bridge card soon?
Ooh, that is a great question that I don't know the answer to. So if you wouldn't mind following up with our office, our email address is, there it is. It's right there. Shoot us an email and we can reach out to the department and look up that information for you.
I'd say that would be a good question for DHHS that we could talk to them about. The next question comes from Annie on Facebook. They are a public policy fellow with United Way for Southeastern Michigan. Their question is, the legislature is currently considering bills that expand payday loans in Michigan. How can legislators and communities better support families struggling financially during these times outside of payday loan expansion?
Oh my gosh, you brought up such a good question, and one that I know is coming up in the Senate very shortly, and one that is not without controversy. So I will give you my personal perspective and then kind of talk about where a lot of people are with payday loan companies. So I just, on an ethical level, on a personal beliefs level, I am really strongly opposed to the business model of many payday lending companies. We have seen data and stories of people who are either underbanked or unbanked. Many of our lower income residents who, need $500, need $1,000 to pay for any number of things, an emergency home repair, they need a car to get to work, there are medical bills that have come up, there's any number of reasons why people might need quick access to money to make sure ends meet. And, I think everybody's seen the data about the number of people who are below the ALICE standard. And I know United Way works on this significantly. It's a high percentage of Michiganders, not only across the state, but in Oakland County as well. And I think that is a misnomer about Oakland County, that we're a wealthy county, that everybody's doing fine. But there is a significant population who really struggles with any emergency that comes up. The percentage of people who could not pay a $400 emergency bill if it were to come up is staggering. And it points to income inequality. It points to all of these kind of systemic issues that we need to address. But payday lending companies kind of fill this void right now. They are the lender of last resort for many people. Typically, they don't need a credit check. They will take you if you have bad credit. They have hours within their facilities that tend to be more accessible to people who might work in service industry jobs. But the flip side of that is that they charge astronomical interest rates. And somebody who takes out a $500 loan might find themselves $20,000, $30,000 in debt years later. And it is just absolutely devastating. So we've seen some of this legislation move through the House, and there's a split. There's a split among Republicans, and there's a split among Democrats, who I think that there are some who fundamentally look at this issue and say, if we prevent payday lenders from operating, then there's nobody. Then there's no option for some of these people who need access to funds, because credit unions don't have the right hours. If you don't have a credit history, there's just a lot of people who won't lend to you. I would like to see different solutions. I would love to see postal banking, for example. The post office is open. It's accessible to a lot of people. I would love to see them offer banking services as well. I know companies like Walmart are trying to get into this space by offering, small loans and banking services within some of their stores. So I think there are creative ways that we can address this. And another option is, could we legislatively put enough guardrails on the payday lending industry so that it is not as predatory, and that we are not setting people up to fail, because it is just devastating. It ruins people's lives, and we can't see people who desperately need $500 finding themselves in debt for years and years and years and not able to recover. So I don't have the answer just yet. I know that it's coming up in the Senate, and I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of debate around it, but wanted to let you all know kind of where I'm at with it. And it's going to be an interesting time. But I know if you're a policy fellow, if you have ideas, if you have examples from other states who you think do this really well, please email us. We rely on the expertise of the community to bring ideas forward. So if this is a space where you've done some work, and I will say this as somebody who does not serve on the committee that this would go through, that always helps us and informs us of how to vote and what to support, and even what ideas to potentially give some of our colleagues. So again, shoot us an email right down there. All right.
I can't really see or figure out where I'm going. Oh, yeah, so I think that's all the questions that we have that I'm seeing. So if there's any other questions, please type in them in the comments now. Give a moment to see if there's any coming in.
Yeah, we always do last call for comments or questions. If not, just to plug again, you can always email us at the email below. If you go to senatormcmorrow.com, you can sign up for our email newsletter, which we send out every few weeks, and it's not campaign side, so you're not going to get, pummeled with fundraising requests. If you want to sign up for those separately, you can do that, and I would appreciate that. But this is stateside. This is where you'll get information about bills, what's happening in the legislature. It's just a newsletter about what happens out of our office in Lansing. So I would encourage you to sign up for that. If you find this helpful, spread the word, share it with your friends and neighbors. We have been really pleased with the turnout at these, and just fundamentally, the more people who participate in this, the better informed we are about what matters to you. And hopefully it's just a casual way that we can engage with each other. And so you can be informed, because I think that's politics can seem really daunting, and we try to make it accessible and maybe fun for people. Fun might be a stretch, but accessible for sure.
Yeah.
Liz, do you have any more questions that come in?
Yeah, we got one more question. Autumn asks, how can we get more involved in government in our local and state communities? With COVID, there's more downtime to learn and help.
Oh, I love that question. So great. So we are actually putting together a mailer right now that will go out, and we will post a version of it in the new year that answers this question, which is, how can you be more informed? How can you get involved? But there are so many opportunities right now. And I think one of the cool things that we've seen during COVID is because so much has shifted online that it's actually really easy to get involved. So if you feel very passionately about a certain political leaning, if you lean one way or another, I would encourage, checking out a local political club. I'm a member of the Royal Oak Democratic Club for those who are interested, so you can find those. But also, city council meetings and city commission meetings. I know that these tend to fall off people's radars, but the more local you get, this is where they talk about the things that actually impact our everyday lives. And this is why I ran for a state level office. A lot of people ask me, like, why aren't you running for Congress? Everybody's running for Congress. But what happens in Washington, if I'm honest, doesn't affect us as much as what happens in the state and what happens in your local community. So pop into these meetings, pop into your local city council, city commission meetings, sign up for newsletters. I think that's a good way to keep up with what's going on. And then for those who don't know, you can actually watch every single session and every single committee meeting in the legislature. So if you go to the Michigan legislature website, if you want to do that, you can tune in and watch us voting on bills. You can see how the procedure works. You would be joining the company of my grandma, who lives in Long Island, New York, but who has watched every single session since I took office. And we talk every now and then, and she gives me a play-by-play and a breakdown of what she thinks of the Michigan legislature. So tune in.
Okay, I think that's all of the questions that I'm seeing. Just some awesome opportunities to volunteer in the comments. So yeah, I will post the link of how to watch committees in session. I watch them whenever they're on. They're in my 2 monitors, so great entertainment.
Some days they are very boring. If you want like a good way to go to sleep, tune in. But some days they are entertaining is a good word, and I always leave it at that. All right. So with that, thanks to everybody who tuned in. This is always a pleasure. And thanks to Liz for joining us to moderate today. And I hope everybody has a good weekend. Stay safe, wear your mask, social distance, but enjoy. It looks like there's a little bit of sun outside, so get out and enjoy it while you can. Thanks, everybody.